Hello, today we're going to talk about what makes a man feel like a man. And welcome to season 2 of Love Married Moments, the podcast. This season we're calling it Love's Legacy. Johnny B, you took me to a concert. I'm exhausted, y'all. I'm exhausted. John likes live music and I like to people watch. I don't know half these people what they saying when they saying it. But anyway, we saw Ambrosia, Lucky Day, and Maxwell. I don't know how I stopped listening to Maxwell, but it's probably a good thing because I was interested and involved. I thought I should have the microphone and, he didn't seem to know I was there though, and he didn't call you up to do your kalimba solo, so I guess we was just somebody in the crowd.
Maxwell's the man.
But anyway, Lucky Day, I've heard some of his music, not really familiar with him, because like I said, I don't really listen to music a lot. But he said something in one of his songs. He's actually said quite a few things that kind of started an eternal argument for me. But the thing that he said yesterday that made me curious and got me thinking was this. I don't know the name of the song either, but he says, "You make me feel like a man." And I got curious about that thing because I'm sure women have a way of making men feel invisible, making them feel like they're only good for a things to do list, making them feel like they're tolerated. But I don't know what it would mean to a man to be made to feel like a man. I'm sure they could even speak to being reduced to not feeling like a man. But what makes a man feel like a man? And I'm not asking this question so sisters can, manipulate men, but to truly understand if you're gonna love this person, how not to on purpose or accidentally destroy them.
Think about historically when we're looking at communities, especially black communities, that don't have a male presence, a father, so that children, male or female, can grow up feeling like they had that presence. When you don't have that, or you have a dysfunctional or flawed version of it, I think what makes a man is what they see and then what they're up against when they're out just kind of being men. So my example would be with the concert yesterday, you immediately were dissecting, in my opinion. His quality of manhood based upon the words he was using, which would suggest that there was a preconceived thought process of, well, what does that mean? And once you found out what it means, would it be something acceptable for you as a man if it didn't go or align with what your belief of what a man's role should be in this situation, should be with a woman? And so I think what makes a man oftentimes, unfortunately, is dysfunction. We don't know what makes us because we either have poor examples or we have a flawed example, and then we try to make that into something else that someone else should comply with, which you are not good at. You're not very good at complying with flawed men.
I don't know what that means. What you talking about, Johnny B?
Well, think about our friendship as well as our marriage. You're not very nice to men that don't handle their business. You don't take care of the marriage. You ain't taking care of these kids. You ain't being responsible with your money. And the ones that you deal with that are close enough to you for you to deal with that, you respect them, but at the same time, that's always in their face. So now if a man only knows how to argue with a woman whether it's his mother, his spouse, his sisters, if that's his only defense to display his manhood, if you will, then that just engages argument rather than someone who is flawed, which is what we have. I can give you my flawed self and you don't treat me like I see you treat other people.
You manage your business.
What if I didn't know? What if I now was a man you loved? We're talking about legacy today, right, too?
I'm gonna have to think through it. Go on, say.
What if I was still the man you love, but I wasn't of the character? I hadn't gotten to the maturity place at close to 66 years old. And I'm sounding more like a Lucky Day or someone else you've seen. Could you be able to accept that flawedness while simultaneously hearing, this is kind of where I got the thought process from in the first place. That makes sense to me. And it works for me. Or if it doesn't work for me, what isn't working for me certainly is you nailing my manhood. Now all of a sudden I don't know nothing. I don't know what I'm doing. How dare you say something like that? Well, maybe that's all I know until I know something different. You let me go to those places. I don't have as many undeveloped places as I used to.
Praise God.
But you let me go to those places and then you don't condemn me so we can figure out, well, John, where'd that come from?
Friend. But I think that this is a good topic or a good line of thinking, especially for, men and women who are interested in being in relationships and just haven't found the right person yet. Mm-hmm. Because I did not think of it the way you said it. And when I think back over my dating life, I generally felt like I had to be asked to go there. And there were certain behaviors that indicated to me you was asking me to let you know a few things.
Don't lose your train of thought. But even this conversation you're having right now, this happily married couple that can still talk about past relationships that were flawed. We know people you can't be talking about. You can't be talking about her hell. Because that's a traumatic, flawed, you don't have that unified
But you
front.
remember, I told you up front, you need to call me Toy, because I need to know who you talking to. And that's always been one of my dating rules.
Which meant what?
I don't want you to use a nickname that you used with Johnetta. I'm not taking her place. That's your relationship with her. We can have something different.
Okay.
And you gave me my own name.
Okay.
I'm Love.
And then why was that important to you?
Because then I know you know it's me.
That to me was huge. That's why me and you went through mental health counseling and we went through pastoral counseling before we got married to make sure that we wasn't bringing in, is you really marrying me or is you just trying to replace, Johnetta or whoever you was with before? That's huge.
I didn't feel like you were, but I wanted to be sure in the quiet spaces it didn't leak in.
And that's it. What I'm saying is that's huge as far as legacy and also as far as healing. Mm-hmm. Part of men don't heal well. We just carry that stuff, as Richard Pryor said years ago. Men don't seek help; they just walk in front of cars.
That's crazy.
We act it out, but we don't never figure out. Well, something's hurting you, and that's caused you to be addicted, or be real reckless, or be real abusive, or whatever. So when we're able to get to those points where we can have that kind of conversation, like, look, I need to know you're over her before you try to get to me, and I had to hear that. Now, where did I learn that from as a man? It wasn't from another man. I'm not sure if it was from my biological mother. I think it was from God. That capacity to be able to say, if you're going to be fruitful, you have to first be healed. And to be able to sit in that place long enough, not be offended by it, or not even if you were to attack my manhood, or if I felt you were attacking my manhood, I would be mature enough to know that's not what she's doing. What she's doing is reflecting or displacing her trauma on me. So part of my manhood now is to say, sit still long enough where she can have that voice to be able to say that without provoking you, so you can both heal together. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think we've done, and I think that's real difficult for a lot of people to do when you're talking about, especially manhood situations. And then legacy is everybody watching us in our house, people who watch us online. Part of our legacy is going to be, now all this, does someone else hear it enough where they could pick it up and now keep going, and they'll make their marriage healthier, or make them more willing to examine themselves, or be able to acknowledge, this person sees me. That's huge with you. You say babies do it better. Babies see us. Adults, we don't see each other. We talk to each other all the time, love on each other, make babies, make money, without ever even seeing each other. Because when I see you, then, as you said in our past podcast, why would I be this in love with you and then do something intentionally to hurt you? And the answer is, I do it in a minute if you're just still triggering my trauma, rather than help me be healed from my trauma and learn how to love and expand that love.
You know, I've actually said to some brothers, I'm not your enemy. Stop and think about our interactions. I'm not your enemy. I'm your cheerleader, whether there was a romantic involvement or a friend. Some people do think that I don't like men. I really do like men. I've been spoiled rotten in my life by my uncles, my grandpa, my dads. In fact, it was part of what made it really complicated for me to figure out dating, because I thought men were like the men in my life, and they weren't. And as flawed as they were, that were in my life, dealing with their own issues and things, they weren't as flawed as some of those brothers. But at the time, I thought, well, yeah, I can give them a little grace, because I do know what it's supposed to look like if you really care about me. Because my uncles, my grandpa, my dads, this is what they do for me. So you would do the same. Show up, not have me out here. I should only have to say it once, maybe twice, and then it gets managed, that kind of thing. Not, your side chick calling me after she done tore up my stuff, talking crazy to me. You got to go, brother. So,
well, in my lifetime, when we start talking about, man, and where does this come from, the knowledge of self, and how did you learn how to be this? And I'm thinking in my life, I learned a whole lot more from women about being a man than I learned from men, because they just wasn't present during those formative years. And then the women who taught me were also having to raise their men. Some of these men stayed straight in my upbringing because their wives held them accountable, even if it meant they had to go find them somewhere. They gonna make this piece of money work. But it's like, that's a whole lot different view than seeing a woman who humbled herself to a strong man because he respected her enough where she would humble herself to him without making it more traumatic and things of that nature. So I think, once again, what makes a strong man sometimes in my lifetime has been making sure you're around a strong woman, because they were more dependable than the man. And then as I became a man, I had to also realize the strong woman that helped get me where I'm at also lacked some things because she didn't have a strong man. So I couldn't trust everything she said, because she was always from that protective posture rather than that humble posture of a woman. Like the scripture says, if a man, you love your wives as Christ loved the church, that makes for a very strong woman when she can do that.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference to know that I can spend my free time thinking about you, and I don't have to think about you, meet your needs, and then figure out how to meet my needs. Because if you ain't home when I get home, or if you just on the way home, we're not together, you're going to send me a text to ask me if I need anything from anywhere. And so it really has made a big difference in my life, really freed me up to be able to do some of the other things that we have going on. Although I always think I have all this time, I always have stuff stacked right on top of the other, where we're hustling, trying to get things done. So,
in conclusion, if a man has been molded to be a man, or if he hasn't really been able to walk in that place, what do you think that's going to make the legacy of that man look like?
When I've seen brothers struggling, and I love men, but I'm especially drawn to black men. I like the way y'all move. Y'all some cool brothers. I like to just watch how you work in the world and see how it turns out. And what I've noticed when they're not quite cutting it is they have not figured out how to get around themselves in order to unconditionally love this person across from them. Even if she's willing to concentrate a lot of attention on him, he's still not ready to come up to the level of meeting her needs, so she doesn't have to meet her own needs and then meet his needs. And it's always some kind of little struggle in there, and I don't know. Maybe, I've listened to things in passing, seen different shows, listened to different music. Maybe these younger generations think that if I'm in charge of you, then I'm being a man. I don't think that that's really where it's at. I think if you're going to make it as a couple, you work to the strengths of each person. And if y'all don't have a strength in something, y'all need to hire somebody to do that. Like fixing the roof. I'm never going to live that down, so.
Well, as you can see, the legacy element of this is layered, and it's really, really intense. And if we were to leave you with anything today, for one is you have to establish that sense of self that is not just trauma-based and not protected mind-based, but it's really like wanting to grow to be a better you, so that even if someone else doesn't quite understand you, you can sit in that and help them come to an understanding rather than continuing the dysfunction. So,
yeah, being courageous enough to say, this isn't it for me, or I need this. And it's really hard to do.
Very hard to do. So we thank you. Today was one of those days. I think we'll have to hit more layers of this. So this whole season is about legacy. So we'll continue to dive in deep, and y'all continue to tune in. God bless you. We'll see you again next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.